Sponsored by Skillshare, and I'll have a very special class to recommend at the end of this video. Hey, happy Friday. This week I'll talk about Xiaomi's big plan to take the place of Huawei. I'll talk about finally saying goodbye to LG phones, and I'll also talk about every internet company in the world cloning Clubhouse. And this week, a fantastic crowd user called Josh offered to gift one brand new DJI product to the community, so we've teamed up with him and made a special drone-themed quiz. If you get at least 15 questions right, you will not only get an invite to crowd, but also the chance to win. Thanks, Josh. Details are in the description, and welcome to the Friday checkout. Okay, I think the most important releases this week by far were those coming from Xiaomi, who have announced 5 phones: the Mi Mix Fold, the 11 Ultra, and the 11 Pro, by far Xiaomi's most expensive devices meant for actual consumers, as well as 2 more affordable offerings in the form of the Mi 11i and the Mi 11 Lite. Beside that, the company also launched the Mi Band 6 and a bunch more random stuff, including Xiaomi's second ever chip called the Surge C1. While this was originally rumored to be an SoC, it actually turned out to be a dedicated image signal processor, a bit like how Google uses its own Pixel Visual Core in its phones. Beside that, it was also the week of April Fools, and companies of course announced a ton of fake products, including RGB shoes and hair dye, and you can find the details on both the fake and the real releases in our release monitors in the description. Alright, my first story of the week will be Xiaomi's big mega launch event. If you weren't aware, this event lasted 2 full days, and I've already told you all the products that they have announced, but beside that, I think the company also laid out a sort of long-term vision for the company that is really fascinating. First, Xiaomi launched 4 new flagship phones, which is on top of their existing regular Mi 11 flagship and the Redmi and Poco flagships, and while many of those are kind of just variations of each other, the company now has more current flagships than many companies have phones. Even more surprising for me was that of those gazillion flagships, 3 are around or above the magical $1,000 mark, with the Ultra being right up there with Samsung's Galaxy S21 Ultra. Now, Xiaomi has technically had expensive phones in the Mi Mix series with its wildly experimental stuff in the past, but those were never really mass market products, and this year they went all in. Now, you could kind of argue that Xiaomi's phones are still sort of aggressively priced. I mean, the Fold, for example, from Xiaomi is still significantly cheaper than the Fold from Samsung or Huawei, but it's clear that the company is now going after the premium upper end market. And that's kind of new because Xiaomi's bread and butter used to be cheap mid-range phones that cost around $100 to $300. The last figures I could find show Xiaomi at just 2% of premium phone sales, and here premium is defined as anything above $400. So in other words, their flagship sales were practically irrelevant, and the average selling price of Xiaomi is so low that by revenue, they typically don't even make it to the global top 5, despite selling way more phones than either Oppo or Vivo or even Huawei by now. Flagship phones for Xiaomi in the past were primarily about branding. They were a way for the company to show to their consumers that, hey, we are an innovative tech company, we can build really cool stuff, and people would look at that and be impressed, and then buy a $200 Redmi phone. But that is changing this year, with the company launching multiple super high-end bets like gigantic custom image sensors or liquid lenses and so on, and actually letting people buy those things. And my guess is that a lot of this has to do with Huawei. Huawei, together with Apple, dominated the flagship segment in China until recently, and the company also saw huge success in the last few years in Europe. But since that company literally can't buy any flagship processors anymore, plus of course it has software issues too, they have left a huge hole in the market that others, including Xiaomi, are rushing to fill. Now, moving a brand from budget to premium is a massive undertaking, and even though in my opinion Xiaomi has fantastic products now to back that up with, I think they have a lot of work left to do in the branding department if they actually want to make it work. Huawei, Samsung, Oppo, and co. have spent billions over years to establish themselves as sophisticated premium lifestyle brands, and it will be interesting to see how Xiaomi will manage to take them on at this level. Also, Xiaomi has previously pledged to keep their margins on phones at 5% or below, and it'll be fascinating to see if they can keep that going with the flagship phones as well, because typically those require a lot more R&D and a lot more marketing spending. Anyway, my second story of the week will be a new report coming out of the Korea Times that says LG will officially announce pulling out of the smartphone business early next week. We've had our first reports about 2 months ago that said LG was considering all options, and back then the story was that they were considering selling or outsourcing more of their phone business to potential buyers. But this new report suggests that potential buyers, including Vietnamese Vingroup, apparently declined making the investment, and LG found no real use for the unit, so they are basically shutting the whole thing down. Now, this is still a rumor, but LG's phone business has been losing money every year since 2015, and despite multiple reorganizations, their sales have been consistently going down and down and down. So I would be sad, but not surprised. Okay, and my third story will be Discord, Spotify, and LinkedIn all announcing that they too are cloning Clubhouse, just like Twitter and many others have done before, and they too are integrating their own version of the live audio chat into their apps. You probably know Clubhouse by now. It's like a big public video call where a few hosts that can talk about whatever they want can invite a few audience members to join live, and pretty much all internet companies with a big community have decided that they too would just copy that feature. On Discord, for example, you can now just tap to create new channel, and then you have the option to create a so-called stage channel, and voila, Clubhouse in Discord. You can set people as hosts, decide to let some of the listeners from the audience speak, and so on. And while most of the discussion seems to revolve around who is copying who, I think the point here is that live audio is kind of a format, and now that we know this format, it makes sense to just integrate it into multiple apps. Just compare it with live video. That's a format too, and it makes sense to have dedicated platforms for it, like Twitch, but it also makes sense to integrate it into other platforms such as YouTube, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And I think the same thing will happen with live audio too. I think it makes total sense that I would be able to host live audio conversations with my existing followers on Twitter or with my existing community on Discord instead of having to go to a whole separate app. Even more than that though, I like the idea of further improving my YouTube channel, especially when the advice comes from this guy in the form of a step-by-step masterclass. If you hadn't heard yet, Marquez just launched his first ever class on Skillshare, and it is exactly as great as you'd expect it to be. Scripting, shooting, editing, how to pick the right camera angles, how to arrange props in the background, how to plan shoots, how to keep your audience engaged, how to think about growing your channel, how to build a proper process so that you can churn out videos at a reasonable frequency. It's just all there, and I learned plenty from this class myself. Marquez is unsurprisingly a fantastic instructor, and really, if there is a single compact place to learn all the relevant skills, this is it. I've recently learned that my viewers have spent 14,000 hours on Skillshare learning new stuff already, and they have watched classes ranging from video editing, photography, UI, UX, creative writing, marketing, and more. Skillshare has thousands of fantastic classes to get you started with whatever you're interested in. The first 1,000 people to use my link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium, and if you choose to keep it, an annual membership is less than $10 a month. So check it out, happy learning, and I'll see you in the next video.